She cared for a mechanic, unaware the millionaire behind the grease would fix her heart. The mechanic who fixed my dying car was covered in grease and offered me a $20 a week payment plan. For 6 weeks, Jay was everything: kind, honest, real. He met my dying mother. Made me believe in love again. Then I Googled his last name. Jason Davidson. Millionaire real estate developer. Worth $43 million. The struggling mechanic owned half the city and let me stress about a $1,200 repair like it actually mattered to him. He said he loved me. Said he was going to tell me the truth. But some secrets are too big to forgive, aren't they? Welcome to Emotional Voyage. I'm so glad you're here to share this journey with me. If this content resonates with you, please hit the like button and subscribe. Your support helps me create even deeper, more meaningful videos for our community. Let's navigate these emotions together. The engine made a sound like a dying cat being strangled by a washing machine. Simone Patterson gripped the steering wheel of her ancient Honda Civic and whispered a prayer her grandmother had taught her. Half plea, half negotiation with the divine. The car shuddered once more before coasting into the gravel lot of Davidson's Auto Repair, a low-slung building on the outskirts of Asheville that looked like it had been there since Carter was president. She'd driven past this place 100 times on her way to the medical supply store, never thinking she'd actually need it. The hand-painted sign was faded, the building itself unremarkable except for the pristine classic cars visible through the open bay doors, a cherry-red Mustang, a powder-blue Thunderbird that gleamed like jewelry. The contrast was striking. The building might be humble, but someone here knew their craft. "Come on, baby," Simone murmured, patting the dashboard as the engine gave one final cough and died. "You picked a good place to give up, at least." She grabbed her purse and the ever-present tote bag, the one that held her mother's medication schedule, backup supplies, and the protein shakes that were the only thing Mama would consume some days, and stepped out into the crisp autumn air. Leaves were just beginning to turn, splashes of gold against the green mountains that ringed the city. Through the open bay door, she could see a pair of legs extending from beneath a vintage Corvette. Work boots, worn jeans with a hole near the knee, the kind of comfortable stance that spoke of someone who'd spent half his life on a creeper. "Hello," she called out. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but my car just died in your parking lot." The legs shifted. A rolling board squeaked, and then he emerged. A white guy, mid-30s probably, with dark hair that needed a cut and grease smudged across one sharp cheekbone. He had the kind of face that would have been almost too handsome if not for the crooked nose that suggested it had been broken at least once, and eyes so blue they were startling against his tanned skin. He stood in one fluid motion, wiping his hands on a rag that might have once been white. He was tall, lean in the way of men who earned their muscle through work rather than gyms. "Ma'am," he said, and his voice was surprisingly refined, educated despite the setting. "You're not interrupting. That's what we're here for." He glanced past her at the Honda, and something that might have been sympathy crossed his face. "The Civic." "The Civic," Simone confirmed. "She's been making noises for a week, but I kept telling myself it was fine." Clearly, she disagreed. "They usually do." He smiled, and it transformed his entire face, crinkling the corners of those blue eyes. "Let me take a look. He paused, just for a heartbeat. "Just call me Jay." "Simone." She shook his extended hand, noting the calluses, the strength in his grip, but also the careful gentleness. A mechanic's hands, but not rough. "I appreciate you looking at it. I know it's late in the day." "Not too late." He walked toward her car, moving with the confidence of someone completely comfortable in his environment. "Pop the hood for me." She reached in and pulled the lever. Jay lifted the hood and propped it open, leaning in to examine the engine with the focus of a surgeon over an operating table. Simone found herself watching the way his shoulders moved under his gray work shirt, the name Davidson's embroidered over the pocket. "How long you been driving her?" he asked without looking up. 12 years. Since college. Loyal. I respect that." He touched something, frowned, touched something else. "When's the last time you had the timing belt replaced?" Simone felt her stomach drop. The timing belt? I'll take that as never. He straightened, meeting her eyes with an expression that wasn't judgmental, just honest. Your belt's about to snap. Probably would have happened in the next 100 miles. You got lucky stopping here. How lucky? She was almost afraid to ask. On a scale of, I can drive home, to I'm calling an Uber? Uber. He said it gently. But it's fixable. Not even the worst thing I've seen today. Simone closed her eyes briefly. She'd already maxed out the budget this month between Mama's new prescriptions and the home health aide who came 3 times a week. Her savings account was running on fumes, much like her car had been. How much are we talking? She asked, forcing herself to meet his gaze directly. I need the honest number, not the polite one. Jay studied her for a moment, and she had the strangest feeling he was seeing more than she wanted to show. Parts and labor, probably around 1,200. But he held up a hand as her face must have revealed her panic. I can work with you on the timeline. We're not going to leave you stranded. I can't ask you to. You didn't ask. I offered. His tone was firm but kind. Look, I can tell you're the type who pays her debts. I've got no concerns there. We'll get you a timeline that works, and we'll get your car safe again. Fair. There was something in the way he looked at her, direct, respectful, without pity, that made Simone's throat tight. She'd spent the last 3 years learning to accept help, learning that pride was expensive and sometimes stupid, but it never got easier. Fair, she managed. Thank you. Really. Let me write up an estimate, get your contact information. He gestured toward the small office attached to the garage. You need to call someone for a ride? My cousin. She's used to my SOS texts by now. The office was small but meticulously organized. The desk was old but clean, papers in neat stacks, a computer that looked newer than everything else in the building. On the wall, Simone noticed a framed photograph, a younger Jay with an older man in front of this very building, both grinning, both covered in grease. Your dad? She asked. Jay glanced at the photo, and something shifted in his expression. Soft, sad, fond all at once. Yeah. He passed a few years back. Built this place from nothing. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate, but she meant them. She knew what loss looked like, had watched it slowly claiming her mother for 3 years now. Thank you. He pulled out a form, clicked a pen. He loved this work. Cars made sense to him in a way people never quite did. I understand that, Simone said quietly. My mama always said taking care of people made sense to her. Everything else was just noise. Jay looked up from the form, and their eyes met with a weight that surprised them both. Recognition of something shared, something understood without explanation. She sounds wise, he said. She is. Simone corrected herself quickly, the way she always did, as if the wrong verb tense might make the Parkinson's diagnosis more real. She has Parkinson's. I take care of her now. That's hard work. It's the only work that matters. She said it simply, the truth she'd built her life around for 3 years. Jay nodded slowly, finishing up the form with quick, neat handwriting. All right, Simone Patterson. I've got your number. I'll call you tomorrow with a full diagnostic and we'll figure out the schedule. Sound good? Sounds good. She took the copy he offered, folding it carefully into her purse. And Jay. Yeah. Thank you for not making me feel like an idiot for driving on a dying timing belt. That smile again, the one that rearranged his whole face. We all drive on dying timing belts sometimes. The trick is knowing when to pull over. Her cousin Monica pulled up 20 minutes later in her pristine Lexus, raising perfectly sculpted eyebrows at the garage, at Simone, at everything. Girl, you need a new car, Monica said as Simone climbed in. I need a lot of things. Simone buckled her seatbelt. A new car's not at the top of the list. As Monica pulled away, Simone glanced back at the garage. Through the bay door, She could see Jay back under the Corvette, just a pair of legs and complete focus. There was something peaceful about the scene, something that stuck with her. She didn't know then that the man under that car owned half the commercial real estate in Asheville. Didn't know that Davidson's auto repair was his sanctuary, not his livelihood. Didn't know that he'd taken one look at her and felt something shift in his carefully controlled world. All she knew was that her car was broken, her bank account was strained, and somehow, a stranger had looked at her with kindness instead of judgment. It was enough. For that autumn evening, it was more than enough. What do you think Simone should do? Accept Jay's payment plan, or find another way to fix her car? Drop your thoughts below. Jay Davidson stood in the floor-to-ceiling windows of his downtown penthouse, watching Asheville's lights flicker to life as dusk settled over the mountains. He held a glass of scotch he hadn't actually drunk from, his mind replaying the moment that woman, Simone, had looked at him with such careful pride while her entire world was clearly holding together with duct tape and prayer. He'd seen the calculation in her eyes when he'd quoted the repair cost. Watched her shoulders straighten even as the number landed like a punch. She hadn't cried, hadn't made excuses, hadn't flirted or manipulated. Just asked for honesty and accepted his offer with the kind of dignity that made his chest ache. His phone buzzed. A text from his property manager about the new acquisition, a historic building on Lexington that would need complete renovation but would triple in value within 5 years. The deal would close next week. Another few million to add to the portfolio his father had started, and Jay had expanded into something the old man never could have imagined. Thomas Davidson had built an honest business with his hands. Jay had turned it into an empire, but somewhere along the way, he'd lost the part that made sense. The part where you could see the problem, fix it, and watch someone drive away happy. So 6 years ago, he'd gone back to the garage. Let his team handle the real estate ventures while he rebuilt transmissions and replaced timing belts. His lawyer thought he was having a breakdown. His accountant suggested therapy. But under the hood of a car, Jay could breathe. He set down the untouched scotch and grabbed his keys. The garage had become more home than this pristine apartment ever would be. Simone sat at her mother's bedside, watching Mama's hands tremble as she tried to hold the cup of tea. The tremors were worse in the evenings, always worse when she was tired. "Let me help," Simone said softly, wrapping her own hands around her mother's, steadying the cup. "I used to feed you," Diane Patterson said, her voice thin but touched with humor. "Now look at us. Now you get to be spoiled. About time." Simone helped her mother take a sip, then set the cup on the bedside table. "How are you feeling? Any pain?" "Nothing new." Diane studied her daughter's face with eyes that still missed nothing, despite everything the disease had taken. "What's wrong, baby?" "Car died today." "Oh, honey." Diane's expression crumpled with worry. "How much?" "Nothing we can't handle." Simone smiled with more confidence than she felt. "The mechanic's letting me pay in installments. It'll be fine. You shouldn't have to." "Mama." Simone took her mother's shaking hand gently. "We've been over this. There's nowhere else I'd rather be, nothing else I'd rather be doing. You took care of me for 30 years. My turn." Diane's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. She'd always been strong, had raised Simone alone after Simone's father had walked out when she was 2. Worked double shifts as a nurse to put Simone through college. Never complained. Never quit. The Parkinson's diagnosis 3 years ago had been cruel in its irony, the caregiver who could no longer care for herself. "You should be out living your life," Diane whispered. "Dating, traveling, being young." "I'm 35, not 25. And I am living my life." Simone adjusted her mother's pillows, smoothing the blankets with practiced ease. "This is my life, and I chose it. So stop worrying about me and worry about finishing that tea before it gets cold." Diane smiled, the expression tremulous but real. "You're so much like your grandmother. Stubborn as a mule. And you loved her for it." "I did. God help me, I did." After Mama fell asleep, Simone sat in the small kitchen of their even smaller house and stared at the estimate Jay had written up. His handwriting was neat, precise. At the bottom, he'd written his personal cell number with a note. Call any time if you have questions. Jay. Something about that casual signature, just a letter, informal and friendly, made her smile despite everything. Her phone rang. Monica's face filled the screen. You get home okay? Her cousin asked without preamble. Yeah, Mama's sleeping. Good. Now tell me about the mechanic. There's nothing to tell. He's fixing my car. Girl, I saw him walk out when I pulled up. That is not nothing to tell. That's something to write home about. Simone laughed despite herself. He was covered in grease, Mon. Grease washes off. Those eyes don't. Monica's voice turned serious. He seemed kind. Was he kind? Yeah. Simone traced the edge of the estimate paper. He was really kind. Didn't make me feel small about the money situation. That's rare. A good-looking man who's also decent. Monica whistled. Maybe the universe is finally throwing you a bone. The universe threw me a broken timing belt. Let's not get carried away. But after they hung up, Simone found herself looking at that estimate again. At the careful way he'd broken down the costs, the reasonable payment plan he'd outlined without her even having to ask. The note at the bottom that suggested he actually wanted her to call if she needed anything. In her experience, men didn't offer help without expecting something in return. Her ex-fiancé, Derek, had been generous right up until she'd chosen her mother over his career advancement. Then suddenly every kindness had been a loan he wanted repaid. But Jay, there'd been something different in those blue eyes. Something that looked like understanding rather than calculation. Don't be stupid, she told herself, folding the paper and tucking it into her purse. He's just a nice guy fixing your car. That's all. Still, she caught herself smiling as she got ready for bed. The next morning, Jay was under a Jeep Wrangler when his phone rang. He rolled out and checked the screen, his pulse doing something weird when he saw the name, Simone Patterson. This is Jay, he answered, wiping his free hand on his jeans. Hi, it's Simone. From yesterday. The dying Honda. Her voice was warm, professional. He could hear something in the background, maybe a TV, maybe music. I remember. He found himself smiling at the phone like an idiot. How are you doing? Good, thank you. I was calling to see if you'd had a chance to look at the car yet? I know it's early, You need to know the timeline. Makes sense. Jay walked toward the office where he'd already pulled her car into the bay. Actually, I looked at it last night. You were right to stop driving. The belt was about 3 threads from snapping completely. He heard her breath catch. That bad. That bad. But the good news is that's the only major issue. Everything else is just regular wear and tear for a car that age. You've actually taken good care of her. Oil changes every 3,000 miles, just like my granddad taught me. There was pride in her voice, and something else. Relief, maybe. Your granddad knew what he was talking about. Jay leaned against the workbench, phone tucked against his shoulder. I can have the parts by tomorrow, get started right away. Should have you back on the road in 3 days, 4 at most. That fast. I don't like to keep people waiting. It was true, but also, he found himself wanting to do this particular job well. Wanting her to trust him. The payment plan I outlined, does that work for your budget? There was a pause. He could almost see her, biting her lip, calculating. It works, she said finally. I'll bring the first payment by tomorrow when I pick up my prescription refill. The pharmacy's only a few blocks from you. No rush. I trust you. You don't even know me. I know enough. He did, somehow. Knew she was the kind of person who drove a car for 12 years, who asked for honest numbers instead of polite ones, who took care of her mother without complaint. Besides, you've got my number now. You try to skip town, I'll find you. She laughed, and the sound did something to his chest. Scary mechanic tracks down deadbeat customer. I can see the headlines. Terrifying, right? I'd probably offer you coffee and ask nicely for the money. A true monster. Her voice was smiling. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. And Jay. Yeah. Thank you. Really. You're making a hard situation a lot easier. After they hung up, Jay stood in the office for a long moment, staring at nothing. Then he shook his head and got back to work, but the smile stayed on his face for the rest of the morning. At noon, his business partner, Kevin Wu, stopped by the garage. Kevin was one of the few people who knew the truth, that Jay owned the building they were standing in, along with 43 others throughout the city. You're really doing it again, Kevin said, watching Jay replace the timing belt with surgical precision. The whole humble mechanic thing. It's not a thing. I like the work. You like hiding. Kevin leaned against the Civic, arms crossed. When are you going to tell people who you actually are? Why would I do that? Because you're living a lie. Jay set down his wrench and looked up at his friend. I'm living honestly. This, he gestured at the garage. This is real. The other stuff, the portfolio, the properties, that's just numbers in accounts. This is actually fixing something. And the woman who owns this car? Kevin's eyebrow rose. Is she part of your fixing something project? It's not like that. Sure, it's not. Kevin pushed off the car. Just be careful, man. The longer you wait to tell the truth, the harder it gets. And when people find out you've been lying, even by omission, they don't tend to take it well. After Kevin left, Jay returned to the engine, but the words rattled around his skull. He wasn't lying, not exactly. He just wasn't volunteering information. There was a difference. But as he worked on Simone's car, touching the engine she'd babied for 12 years, thinking about her careful pride and her honest eyes, he felt the first stirring of something that might have been guilt. He pushed it aside. He'd tell her, eventually. Once they'd gotten past the awkward customer-mechanic relationship. Once she knew him as Jay, not as Jason Davidson, the millionaire real estate developer. Once he was sure she saw him for who he actually was, not what he owned. The timing belt slid into place with a satisfying click, and Jay tightened it with the kind of focus that had always brought him peace. But underneath the familiar rhythm of the work, something new had taken root. He was looking forward to tomorrow. To seeing her again. And that, he thought, might be more dangerous than any broken timing belt. Do you think Jay should tell Simone the truth about his wealth now, or wait until they know each other better? Share your perspective below. Simone pushed through the door of Davidson's auto repair carrying 2 cups of coffee and what she recognized as a peace offering, homemade banana bread wrapped in foil, still warm from her mother's ancient recipe. She'd woken up that morning thinking about Jay's voice on the phone. The way he'd said, "I trust you," like it was the simplest thing in the world. Nobody trusted strangers anymore, especially not with money. It had unsettled her enough that she'd pulled out her grandmother's recipe box at 5 in the morning and started baking. Couldn't sleep. Mama had asked from her doorway, steadying herself against the frame. Couldn't turn my brain off, Simone had admitted. Go back to bed. I'll bring you breakfast in an hour. Now she stood in the garage, feeling slightly ridiculous with her coffee and baked goods, wondering if she'd misread simple kindness for something more. Jay emerged from the office, and her breath caught despite her best efforts. He'd cleaned up since yesterday, fresh work shirt, hair still damp like he'd just showered, no grease on his face. Those blue eyes went wide when he saw her. You brought coffee, he said, and his smile was better than any caffeine. And banana bread. I stress bake. She handed him a cup. I didn't know how you take it, so I brought sugar and cream on the side. Black's perfect. He accepted the cup, their fingers brushing briefly. The contact sent electricity up her arm that she absolutely did not have time for. And you didn't need to bring anything. The payment plan wasn't a favor that needed repaying. I know. I wanted to. She unwrapped the bread, breaking off a piece and offering it to him. My grandmother's recipe. It's the only thing I can actually make that doesn't come from a box. Jay took a bite, and his expression transformed into something close to reverence. This is incredible. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not surprised you can cook. I'm surprised you had time, given everything. He gestured toward her car in the bay. Want to see the damage? She followed him to the Honda, watching as he pointed out the old belt, frayed and dangerous, next to the new one he'd already installed. He explained everything in terms she could understand, patient and thorough, never condescending. You really love this, don't you? She asked, watching his hands move over the engine with practiced reverence. Love what? The work. Fixing things. She leaned against the car next to him. My mama was the same way about nursing. She could have moved into administration, made more money, but she wanted to be with patients. Said paperwork didn't give her purpose. Jay's expression softened. Your mom sounds like someone I'd like. She'd like you too. She's got a sixth sense about good people. Simone paused. How's she doing today? Tired. The new medication makes her sleepy, but at least the tremors are a bit better. She heard herself opening up and couldn't quite stop. Some days are harder than others. Today's a good day. And you're here instead of with her? Home health aid comes Tuesdays and Thursdays. Gives me a few hours to handle things. Like broken cars and mechanic who made her feel things she'd sworn off after Derek. Besides, I wanted to thank you properly. And make sure you weren't some kind of scam artist who was going to sell my car for parts. Jay laughed, the sound rich and genuine. Damn, you caught me. I was definitely going to get rich off a 12-year-old Civic. Hey, she's got character. She does. And she'll run smooth as silk when I'm done. He took another piece of banana bread. This is seriously good. You sure you stress-baked this? Because I'm thinking you've been holding out. Maybe I'm a secret pastry chef and the whole caregiver thing is just my cover. Now who's the one with secrets? The words hung between them, playful but with an edge she couldn't quite name. Jay's smile faltered for just a second, something crossing his face too quick to read. Well, Simone said, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. I should get going. I've got to pick up those prescriptions before the pharmacy gets busy. Simone. Jay set down his coffee. Would you want to have dinner with me? When I finish the car, I mean. Not as mechanic and customer. Just as two people who like banana bread and honest conversation. Her heart kicked against her ribs. She'd promised herself no distractions, no complications. Mama needed her fully present, and men, even kind ones with blue eyes and gentle hands, they always wanted more than she could give. But looking at Jay, at the hope and nervousness in his expression, she found herself saying, I'd like that. Yeah. But I have to be home by 8. Mama needs her evening medications, and I don't like leaving her alone too long. 8 o'clock curfew. I can work with that. His grin was boyish, transforming him from handsome to devastating. How about Thursday? Car should be done by then. Thursday works. She left the garage feeling lighter than she had in months, the autumn sun warm on her face. Her phone buzzed immediately. Monica, with an impressive string of eyes emoji. How did you know I was there? Simone typed back. Psychic. Also you told me yesterday you were going today. Details. Now. Simone smiled, pocketing her phone. The details could wait. Right now, she wanted to hold this feeling close. The flutter of possibility, the warmth of connection, the simple gift of someone seeing her as more than just a caregiver or a woman with problems. Behind her, through the garage window, Jay watched her walk away. He pulled out his own phone, staring at a text from his property manager about a meeting with investors. His penthouse apartment. His real life. Kevin's words echoed in his head. The longer you wait to tell the truth, the harder it gets. He should tell her. Before Thursday. Before this became something real. But even as he thought it, Jay knew he wouldn't. Not yet. Because for the first time in 6 years, someone was looking at him. Just Jay, the mechanic, and choosing him anyway. Not his money, not his portfolio, not his potential. Just him. He'd tell her after the date, he decided. After she knew him well enough to understand why he'd kept quiet. After the truth wouldn't change everything. It was the right decision, he told himself. It had to be. Should Simone be cautious about dating while caring for her mother, or is it okay to pursue happiness for herself too? What would you do? Let us know below. Thursday evening arrived wrapped in the kind of perfect autumn weather that made Asheville look like a postcard. Crisp air, golden light slanting through the mountains, leaves crunching underfoot. Simone stood in front of her closet feeling like a teenager before prom, which was ridiculous considering she was 35 years old and this was just dinner. Just dinner with a man who makes you smile like that, Mama said from the doorway, her walker supporting her slight frame. The tremors were mild today, a good sign. I don't smile like anything, Simone protested, but she could feel the grin tugging at her lips. Baby, you've tried on 4 outfits. For just dinner. Diane's eyes sparkled with amusement and something deeper. Hope, maybe. Relief that her daughter might finally be living for herself again. Wear the blue dress. Brings out your eyes. Simone pulled out the navy wrap dress she'd bought 2 years ago and never worn. It felt wrong to spend money on herself when Mama needed so much, but Monica had insisted, and now she was grateful. The fabric skimmed her curves in ways that made her feel beautiful instead of invisible. What if I'm making a mistake? She asked, voicing the fear that had gnawed at her for 3 days. What if I'm being selfish? Selfish. Diane made her way slowly into the room, lowering herself onto the bed with careful movements. Honey, you haven't been selfish a day in your life. You're allowed to want something for yourself. But what if something happens while I'm gone? Then Patricia will handle it. Mama gestured toward the living room where the night nurse sat reading. That's why she's here. That's why you pay her. So you can have a life. Simone sat beside her mother, careful not to jostle her. When did you get so wise? About the time you were born, and I realized I was responsible for an entire human being. Diane reached out with shaking hands to touch her daughter's face. I don't want my sickness to become your prison, baby. Your grandmother would haunt me if I let that happen. Grandma would haunt us both just for fun. They laughed together, the sound filling the small room with warmth. When Jay's truck pulled into the driveway, an older Ford F-150, well-maintained but not flashy, Simone felt her pulse kick into overdrive. He's here, she whispered. Then go. Mama squeezed her hand. And have enough fun for both of us. Jay had changed clothes 3 times, which was insane. He owned a penthouse downtown with a closet full of designer suits, had attended charity galas where $100-a-plate dinners were considered modest, and yet he was nervous about taking a woman to a casual restaurant in jeans and a button-down shirt. He'd chosen Harvest, a farm-to-table place on the south side that he actually owned through one of his LLCs, though the chef didn't know that. It was nice without being pretentious, intimate without being presumptuous. The kind of place where they could actually talk. When Simone opened the door, every carefully planned word evaporated from his brain. Hi, she said, and her smile was sunshine. Hi. He managed to remember how language worked. You look beautiful. You clean up pretty nice yourself. No grease today. I scrubbed extra hard. He'd actually showered twice, which seemed excessive in retrospect. Your car's purring like a kitten, by the way. Drove her this morning to make sure everything was perfect. You test drove my car? Quality control. Strictly professional. He grinned. Ready to go. She grabbed a light jacket and called goodbye to someone inside, her mother, he assumed, and a nurse. The reminder of her responsibilities settled over them both, but Simone shook it off with visible effort. I have until 8, she said, sliding into his truck. Let's make it count. Harvest was a 15-minute drive through downtown, and Jay found himself taking the long route, wanting to stretch every moment. They talked easily, about music, about the changing leaves, about whether barbecue should be vinegar-based or tomato-based, a debate that got surprisingly heated. I'm just saying, North Carolina vinegar-based is the superior choice, Simone insisted. That's objectively wrong. You need the sweetness to balance the smoke. You need your taste buds examined. Jay laughed so hard he had to pull over for a second. When was the last time he'd laughed like this? When had anything felt this easy? The restaurant was half full, the lighting low and warm. The hostess greeted Jay with recognition. He came here often enough on the rare occasions he ate out, but she was professional enough not to say anything beyond a friendly hello. They settled into a corner booth, and Jay found himself watching Simone take in the space. The exposed brick, the Edison bulbs, the menu written on chalkboards. She ran her fingers along the worn wood of the table, and he wondered what she saw. This place is lovely, she said finally. I've driven past it 100 times but never came in. Always figured it was out of my price range. Something twisted in Jay's chest. He'd made the reservation under his name, and the staff knew to comp his meals, but he couldn't tell her that. Not without explaining everything else. It's reasonable, he said instead, which was true if you weren't counting pennies. And the food's worth it. They ordered, she got the roasted chicken, he got the steak, and then the real conversation began. The kind that happened when two people stopped performing and started being honest. Tell me about your dad, Simone said, leaning forward. The picture in your office, you two looked close. Jay felt the familiar ache, duller now but never fully gone. We were. He taught me everything about cars, about integrity, about showing up and doing the work even when it's hard. He traced patterns in the condensation on his water glass. He died 8 years ago. Heart attack in the garage. Quick, at least. Doing what he loved. I'm sorry. Her hand covered his on the table, warm and solid. That must have been devastating. It was. Still is, some days. He turned his hand over, lacing their fingers together without thinking. It felt natural. But he left me the business, and working there, it keeps him close, you know? I do know. Simone's eyes glistened. That's how I feel taking care of Mama. Like every day I get to show her what she showed me, that love isn't just words. It's action. How long has she been sick? 3 years since the diagnosis. But she'd been having symptoms for a while before that. Tremors she blamed on too much coffee, stiffness she blamed on age. Simone's voice went soft. By the time we knew for sure, it had already progressed. Now it's just about managing it, keeping her comfortable. That's a lot to carry. Some days more than others. She met his eyes. My ex-fiancé didn't think so. Thought I should put her in a facility, focus on our future. When I said no, he said I was choosing her over him. He was right, Jay said quietly. You did choose her. And that makes you extraordinary, not selfish. Simone's breath caught. You don't think I'm throwing my life away? I think you're living your life exactly how you choose. There's power in that. He squeezed her hand. And for what it's worth, your ex was an idiot. He really was. She laughed, but it was watery. I don't usually talk about this stuff on first dates. Is that what this is? A first date? What else would it be? Jay grinned. Just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. The food arrived, and they ate slowly, trading bites and stories. Simone told him about growing up with a single mother who worked double shifts but never missed a school play. Jay told her about learning to rebuild his first engine at 12, the pride in his father's eyes when it actually started. What he didn't tell her was about the real estate empire. The investments. The fact that he could buy this restaurant, that he already owned it, without thinking twice. He told himself it didn't matter. Not yet. This was about them, not his bank account. But as Simone checked her watch at 7:30, apologizing for having to leave soon, Jay felt the weight of the omission settle heavier on his shoulders. "I had a really good time," she said as they walked back to his truck. "Good enough for a second date?" "Depends. Can you handle being proven wrong about barbecue again?" "I can handle anything if it means seeing you smile like that." The words came out more honest than he'd intended, and Simone stopped walking, turning to face him in the parking lot. The streetlights cast golden pools around them, and autumn leaves swirled at their feet. "Jay," she said softly, "I need you to know, I can't do casual. My life's too complicated for games." "I don't want casual." He stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. "I want real. Complicated and messy and real. Even with all my baggage. Especially with your baggage. It's part of what makes you incredible." Simone rose on her toes and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. Jay's hand came up to cup her face, and for a moment, everything else fell away. The secrets, the worry, the weight of all they were carrying. There was just this. Just them. When they pulled apart, both breathing harder, Simone smiled. Second date. Definitely. Jay drove her home feeling like he could fly. But as he watched her hurry into her small house, back to her mother and her responsibilities and her beautiful, complicated life, Kevin's warning echoed again. The longer you wait to tell the truth, the harder it gets. He'd tell her soon, Jay promised himself. After the second date. After she knew him well enough that the money wouldn't matter. After he was sure this was real. Have you ever kept a secret from someone you were dating because you were afraid it would change how they saw you? How did it turn out? Share your story below. The second date happened 3 days later at a farmer's market on a Sunday morning, which Simone had insisted was perfect because Mama's sister, Aunt Lorraine, was visiting for the weekend. Jay had suggested brunch at one of downtown's trendy spots, but Simone had countered with something simpler, more them. "I haven't been to a farmer's market in forever," she'd said on the phone, her voice bright with an excitement that made his chest warm. "And I need fresh vegetables anyway. We can kill 2 birds." Now Jay walked beside her through rows of vendor stalls, watching her examine heirloom tomatoes with the focus of a jeweler appraising diamonds. She wore jeans and a burnt orange sweater that made her skin glow, her hair pulled back in a ponytail that he'd wanted to touch since the moment he'd picked her up. "These are perfect," Simone said, selecting 4 tomatoes and haggling with the farmer over price in a way that was both impressive and slightly terrifying. She got him down $2, then bought a bunch of basil to sweeten the deal. "You're really good at that," Jay observed, carrying her growing collection of bags. "Grew up doing it with Grandma. She could negotiate anything." Simone grinned. "Once talked a car salesman into throwing in free oil changes for life. The man looked traumatized. Remind me never to negotiate against you." "Smart man." They wandered through the market, and Jay found himself relaxing in a way he rarely did. No business calls, no property managers needing decisions, no investors wanting FaceTime. Just fresh air and good company, and Simone's laugh when he admitted he'd never actually cooked with fresh herbs. "Never." She stopped walking, scandalized. "What do you eat?" "Takeout mostly. Sometimes I grill." "Jay. That's tragic." She steered him toward a spice vendor. "We're fixing this right now." 20 minutes later, he'd been educated on the difference between oregano and marjoram, had smelled approximately 15 different spice blends, and had purchased enough supplies to stock a restaurant kitchen. Simone had appointed herself his culinary teacher, and he'd agreed with embarrassing eagerness. "I'll teach you to make Grandma's spaghetti sauce," she said, leading him toward a bread vendor. "It's easy, and you'll never want Jared's sauce again." "When?" "When what? When will you teach me?" He caught her hand, threading their fingers together. "Because I'd like that to be soon." Simone's smile went soft. "Next weekend? Saturday afternoon, if Aunt Lorraine can stay with Mama." "It's a date." They bought fresh bread and aged cheese, and Simone made him try samples of local honey until they were both slightly sugar-drunk and laughing. The vendor, an older black woman with knowing eyes, watched them with barely concealed amusement. "You two are sweet," she said, bagging their honey purchase. "How long you been together?" "Oh, we're not," Simone started. "2 weeks," Jay said simultaneously, then grinned at Simone's surprised expression. "What? We're not together. I mean, we've had 2 dates. 2.5. The garage counts." "The garage was a business transaction." "Was it though?" He leaned closer, voice dropping. "Because I remember some pretty intense eye contact over that timing belt." Simone laughed, swatting his arm, but her cheeks flushed in a way that made him want to kiss her right there in the middle of the market. The honey vendor made a sound suspiciously like hum, and shooed them away with a smile. They found a bench overlooking the French Broad River, eating bread and cheese and watching kayakers navigate the gentle rapids. The mountains rose around them, and the October sun was warm despite the cooling air. "This is nice," Simone said quietly, leaning against his shoulder. "Just being. I forget how to do this sometimes. Be still. Be anything other than a caregiver." She broke off a piece of bread, not eating it, just holding it. "I love taking care of Mama, I do. But some days I wake up and can't remember who I was before. Like that version of me just disappeared." Jay set down his food and turned to face her. "Tell me about her. The before version." "Why?" "Because I want to know all of you. Past, present, future." Simone studied his face, searching for something. Whatever she found must have satisfied her because she smiled and began talking. She told him about college, about her degree in social work, about the job she'd loved at a community center helping at-risk kids. About dreams of opening her own practice one day, making real change. "When Mama got diagnosed, I took a leave of absence," she said. "Thought it would be temporary. But the disease progressed faster than we expected, and the leave became permanent." She shrugged, trying for casual and missing. "Some dreams get postponed." "Postponed isn't cancelled." "Jay, I'm 35. By the time Mama..." Her voice caught. "By the time I can work again, I'll be starting over in my 40s. Nobody's going to hire me." "Then you hire yourself. Open that practice." He took her hand. "And for the record, 40 is not old. It's just getting started," says the man who probably has his whole life figured out. If she only knew. Jay thought about his real estate portfolio, about the meeting he'd rescheduled yesterday with investors who wanted to develop a waterfront property. About the life he'd built that had nothing to do with timing belts and everything to do with money multiplying while he slept. He should tell her. Right now, in this perfect moment, he should just say it. But then Simone's phone buzzed. She checked it and her expression shifted, not quite worry, but the constant vigilance of someone always on call. "Aunt Lorraine," she explained. "Mama's asking for me. Her medication makes her anxious sometimes when I'm gone too long." "Let's get you home then." They gathered their bags and walked back to his truck, and Jay noticed how Simone's shoulders had tensed, how she'd slipped back into caregiver mode like putting on armor. The light, laughing woman from an hour ago was still there, but buried under responsibility. At her house, Jay helped carry the groceries to the door. Simone turned to him, rising on her toes to kiss him softly. "Thank you," she said, "for reminding me I'm still a person. You're an amazing person." He kissed her again, longer this time, tasting honey and promise. "And I'm not going anywhere. Even though my life is complicated. Especially because of that." After she went inside, Jay sat in his truck for a long moment. His phone showed 6 missed calls, his property manager, his lawyer, Kevin. The real world, demanding attention. He drove not to his penthouse but to the garage, changing into work clothes and losing himself under the hood of a vintage Mustang someone had brought in for restoration. This was where he thought best, where things made sense. Kevin showed up around 3, leaning against the workbench with crossed arms. You're avoiding something, Kevin said. I'm working. You're hiding. There's a difference. Kevin picked up a wrench, examining it. The investors are getting impatient. They want a decision on the waterfront property. Tell them I need another week. Jay, it's a $12 million deal. They're not going to wait forever. Then let them walk. Jay didn't look up from the carburetor he was rebuilding. There'll be other deals. This isn't about the deal. Kevin's voice went quiet. You told her yet? No. Why not? Because the moment I tell her I'm rich, everything changes. Jay finally looked at his friend. She'll either want me for my money or she'll run because she thinks she's not good enough. Either way, I lose the thing I actually want. Which is someone who sees me. Just me. He set down his tools. When's the last time that happened? When's the last time a woman looked at me and didn't see dollar signs or opportunity? Kevin was quiet for a moment. She deserves to make an informed choice, man. You're taking that away from her. I'll tell her. Soon. When? When I'm sure she won't disappear. After Kevin left, Jay pulled out his phone and looked at the text Simone had sent. Made it home safe. Mama wants to know when she gets to meet the man who makes me smile so much. Maybe soon. No pressure though. He typed back. I'd love to meet her. Anytime. Meeting her mother felt significant, real. Like this was becoming something that mattered beyond stolen hours at farmers markets and kisses in parking lots. He wanted it to matter. Wanted it more than he'd wanted anything in years. But Kevin was right. The longer he waited, the worse it would be. Next weekend, Jay promised himself. After the cooking lesson, after she taught him about her grandmother's sauce and let him into more of her world. After one more perfect day where he was just Jay, the mechanic who made her laugh. Then he'd tell her everything. He had to. When you're falling for someone, how soon is too soon to share your biggest secrets? Should Jay tell Simone now or wait? Drop your thoughts. The cooking lesson never happened. Saturday morning, Simone called at 7:30, her voice tight with exhaustion. Mama had a bad night. She fell trying to get to the bathroom, and we spent 4 hours in the ER. Nothing broken, just bruising, but she's shaken up and I can't leave her right now. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize, Jay said immediately, already pulling on jeans. Is there anything I can do? Anything you need? No, we're okay. Aunt Lorraine had to leave early for work, so it's just me today. She sighed, and he could hear how close she was to breaking. I'm sorry about the cooking lesson. Can we reschedule? Simone, forget the cooking lesson. Are you okay? There was a long pause. I'm tired. Really, really tired. I'm coming over. Jay, you don't have to. I want to. Let me help. Another pause, longer this time. Okay. But it's not pretty here right now. Fair warning. Simone's house was a small bungalow in an older neighborhood, the kind of place with good bones but deferred maintenance. The porch sagged slightly, paint peeled near the gutters, and the yard needed work. Jay noticed all of it and cared about none of it as Simone opened the door. She looked exhausted, hair in a messy bun, no makeup, wearing sweatpants and an old college t-shirt. She'd never looked more beautiful to him. Hi, she said, managing a weak smile. Hi. He held up the bag he'd brought. I stopped and got breakfast sandwiches and coffee. Figured you probably hadn't eaten. Her eyes filled with tears. You didn't have to do that. I know. Can I come in? The inside of the house was small but spotlessly clean, decorated with the kind of care that came from making a home despite limited resources. Family photos covered the walls, Simone at various ages, an older woman who must be her grandmother, and in pride of place, a younger version of the woman he could now hear coughing softly from the back bedroom. That's Mama, Simone said unnecessarily. Let me check on her, and then we can eat. Jay waited in the small kitchen, taking in the details. Medical supplies stacked neatly on the counter. A pill organizer the size of a tackle box. A whiteboard on the wall with medication schedules written in color-coded marker. A cheerful calendar featuring Bible verses, appointments marked in careful handwriting. This was Simone's life. Not farmers' markets and stolen kisses. This. The daily grind of keeping someone alive, comfortable, loved. She returned looking even more drained. She's sleeping. The ER gave her something for the pain. Come here. Jay pulled her into a hug, and she collapsed against him like a puppet with cut strings. He felt her shoulders shake and realized she was crying silently, the kind of crying that came from someone who'd learned not to make noise about their pain. I'm sorry, she whispered against his chest. Stop apologizing for being human. He stroked her back, letting her cry. When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours? I don't know. Tuesday maybe. Okay. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to eat breakfast, then you're going to take a nap while I sit with your mom. Jay, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. And before you argue, let me remind you that I sat with my dad through chemo for 6 months. I know how to keep someone company, how to help them to the bathroom, how to stay calm in an emergency. This wasn't entirely true. His father had refused treatment and died quickly, but Jay had volunteered at a hospice for 2 years after, needing to do something meaningful with his grief. That part was real. Simone pulled back, searching his face. Why are you being so nice to me? Because I care about you. And because you deserve someone who shows up, not just when things are easy. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Let me help. Please. She nodded, too tired to argue anymore. They ate breakfast at the small kitchen table, and Jay watched Simone force down food she clearly didn't want but needed. Then she led him to her mother's room, introducing him in a soft voice. Diane Patterson was small in the hospital bed that dominated the room, her brown skin ashen with exhaustion, her hands trembling even in sleep. But Jay could see where Simone got her features, the same high cheekbones, the same determined chin. Mama, Simone said gently, touching her mother's shoulder. There's someone I want you to meet. Diane's eyes opened, unfocused at first, then sharpening as she took in Jay standing awkwardly in the doorway. So you're the mechanic, she said, her voice weak but warm. The one who makes my baby smile. Yes, ma'am. I'm Jay. He stepped closer. It's an honor to meet you. Honor. Diane managed a small smile. He's got manners, Simone. That's something. I told you he was nice, Simone said. Nice is easy. Kind is harder. Diane studied Jay with sharp eyes that saw too much. You planning to be kind to my daughter? Yes, ma'am. That's the plan. Good. Because she deserves kind. Diane's eyes started to drift closed again. She deserves everything. Simone kissed her mother's forehead and led Jay back to the living room. She's usually more alert. The medication makes her loopy. She's protective. I like that. Jay touched Simone's face. Now go sleep. I'll be right here. Simone disappeared into what must be her bedroom, and Jay settled into the recliner beside Diane's bed with a book he'd brought. The room was quiet except for the hum of a humidifier and Diane's uneven breathing. Around noon, Diane woke and needed the bathroom. Jay helped her with the careful professionalism he'd learned volunteering, treating her dignity as paramount. She didn't speak much, but when he settled her back into bed, she caught his hand. You love her, she said. It wasn't a question. Jay opened his mouth to deflect, then stopped. I'm starting to. Yes, ma'am. She'll fight it. She thinks she doesn't have room in her life for love and duty both. I'll wait. However long it takes. You rich boy. The question came out of nowhere, and Jay felt his stomach drop. I'm sorry. Rich. You got that look about you. Too comfortable, too confident. Men who work with their hands their whole lives, they carry themselves different. Diane's eyes were sharp despite the medication. You're playing at something. Jay's mouth went dry. Mrs. Patterson. Don't lie to me. I'm dying, not stupid. She squeezed his hand with surprising strength. I don't care about your money. I care if you're lying to my daughter. I haven't lied. I just haven't told her everything. Same thing, when it matters. Diane's expression softened slightly. Why hide it? Because I wanted her to know me first. Before the money complicated everything. Money always complicates everything, honey. Hiding it just makes it worse. She released his hand. Tell her soon. Before she finds out another way. That girl's been hurt enough. Before Jay could respond, his phone buzzed. He'd silenced it, but it was vibrating insistently in his pocket. He glanced at the screen. Kevin, calling for the 4th time. Take it, Diane said. I'm fine for a minute. Jay stepped into the hallway and answered. What's wrong? Where are you? The waterfront investors showed up at your apartment. They're pissed you keep rescheduling. Tell them I'm busy. Jay, they're not going to wait much longer. This deal is. I don't care about the deal. Jay kept his voice low but couldn't keep the frustration out. There are more important things happening right now. More important than $12 million? Jay looked back toward Diane's room, thought about Simone sleeping in the next room, exhausted from caring for her mother alone. Yeah, Kevin. A lot more important. He hung up and silenced his phone completely. When Simone emerged 3 hours later, looking marginally more human, she found Jay and her mother engaged in what appeared to be a spirited debate about whether Motown or soul music was superior. You're both wrong, Simone announced from the doorway. It's jazz and you know it. Now she's just being difficult, Diane said, but she was smiling, more animated than she'd been all day. Jay stood, stretching muscles that had stiffened from sitting. Your mom's been educating me. Did you know she saw Aretha Franklin perform live in 1972? Only about 1,000 times. Simone kissed her mother's cheek. You feeling better, Mama? Better than this morning. Your young man's good company. He's not my. Simone caught Jay's amused expression. Okay, maybe he is. Good. I like him. He can stay. Diane waved them toward the door. Now go feed him. He's been here 6 hours and hasn't eaten lunch. I raised you better than that. In the kitchen, Simone leaned against the counter and just looked at Jay. Thank you. For today. For all of it. You don't have to thank me. I do though. Most men would have run screaming by now. I'm not most men. He crossed to her, framing her face with his hands. And I meant what I told your mom. I'm not going anywhere. Simone kissed him then, deep and grateful and full of something that felt dangerously close to love. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against his. I'm falling for you, she whispered. And it scares me. Me too, Jay said, and meant it with his whole heart. What he didn't say was that he was terrified too. Terrified she'd hate him when she learned the truth. Terrified that Diane was right and hiding his wealth was the same as lying. Terrified that he was building something beautiful on a foundation of omission. But for now, in Simone's small kitchen with her mother's approval still warm in his ears, Jay let himself believe that love might be enough. It had to be. Should Jay tell Simone about his wealth now that he's met her mother, or would it feel like he's breaking the trust they've built? What's your take? Comment below. The secret lasted exactly 11 more days. Simone had started to believe in the possibility of happiness again. Jay came by 3 evenings that week, bringing dinner and sitting with Mama while Simone caught up on medical paperwork or simply breathed. He'd become part of their small world so seamlessly it felt like he'd always been there. Teasing Mama about her soap opera obsessions, fixing the loose hinge on the bathroom door without being asked, making Simone laugh when she'd forgotten she knew how. On the 11th day, Monica texted, "Emergency lunch. My treat. No excuses." They met at a café downtown, and Monica was practically vibrating with excitement as Simone slid into the booth. "Okay, Spill everything about the mechanic. Mama Davis said you've been glowing, and you know she doesn't exaggerate. Simone felt heat creep up her neck. He's wonderful. That's all. That's not all. Give me details. Monica leaned forward conspiratorially. Has he met Aunt Diane yet? 2 weeks ago. Mama loves him. She's already planning our wedding, which is insane because we've only been seeing each other a month. A month can be enough when you know. Monica squeezed her hand. I'm happy for you, cousin. You deserve this. They ordered salads and fell into easy conversation, the kind that came from knowing someone your whole life. Simone was mid-sentence about Jay's terrible cooking skills when Monica's expression changed, her eyes focusing on something over Simone's shoulder. Is that him? Monica asked, her voice suddenly strange. Simone turned. Across the café, Jay stood near the entrance with another man, Asian, well-dressed, carrying a leather portfolio. They were deep in conversation, Jay's body language completely different from anything she'd seen. Confident, commanding, expensive-looking in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. That's him, Simone said slowly. But I've never seen him in a suit before. Monica pulled out her phone, typing quickly. Her face went pale. Mon? What's wrong? Simone. Monica turned her phone around. Is his last name Davidson? On the screen was a news article from the Asheville Business Journal, dated 3 months ago. Local developer Jason Davidson expands portfolio with historic downtown acquisition. The photo showed Jay, in a different expensive suit, shaking hands with the mayor. Simone's hands went numb. That can't be right. Keep reading. She scrolled through the article with shaking fingers. Words jumped out: millionaire real estate developer, extensive commercial holdings, estimated net worth, one of Asheville's most eligible bachelors. There were more articles. Dozens. Jay at charity galas, Jay closing business deals, Jay being interviewed about economic development. Jay being anyone except the humble mechanic who'd fixed her car and won her heart. Simone, Monica started. But Simone was already standing, moving across the café on autopilot. Jay looked up as she approached, and his face went through a rapid succession of expressions. Surprise, pleasure, then dawning horror as he registered her expression. Simone, hey, I didn't know you'd be Jason Davidson. Her voice came out flat, dead. Not just Jay. Jason Davidson, real estate developer. Millionaire. The other man looked between them, clearly sensing disaster. I'll give you 2 a minute, he said, disappearing toward the back of the café. Let me explain, Jay said, reaching for her. She stepped back. How long were you planning to lie to me? I never lied. You let me think you were a mechanic struggling to keep your father's business going. You watched me stress about a $1,200 car repair, offered me a payment plan like you were doing me this huge favor, all while you're worth, she glanced at her phone, an estimated $43 million. The garage is real. My work there is real. I do keep my father's business going. As a hobby. Her voice rose, and people were starting to stare. She didn't care. While you own half of downtown. Were you laughing at me, Jay? Poor Simone with her broken-down car and her sick mother, how quaint. God, no. Simone, it was never like that. Then what was it like? Help me understand why you'd let me into your garage, into my home, into my mother's sick room, all while pretending to be someone you're not. Jay's jaw clenched. I'm exactly who I showed you. The money doesn't change. The money changes everything. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. I told you about Derek, about how he left because I wasn't enough, wasn't successful enough, didn't fit into his world. And you let me pour my heart out while hiding that you live in a completely different universe than me. I was going to tell you. When? After I fell completely in love with you? After it would hurt the most. She laughed bitterly. Congratulations, you timed it perfectly. Simone, please. His voice cracked. Just let me explain why. I don't want your explanations. I want. Her voice broke, and she hated herself for it. I want to have never met you. She saw the words land like physical blows. Jay's face went pale, his hands falling to his sides. You don't mean that. Don't tell me what I mean. You've been deciding what I get to know for weeks. I'm done. She turned to leave, then stopped. The car's paid off, right? Or was that another game? It's paid off. And it was never a game. Everything was a game, Jay. You were playing dress-up in your garage while I was trying to survive real life. She met his eyes one last time. Stay away from me. Stay away from my mother. We don't need your charity. She walked out before he could respond, before she could see whatever expression was on his face, before she completely shattered in front of half of Asheville's lunch crowd. Monica was waiting outside, keys already in hand. My place or yours? Mine. Mama will worry if I'm late with her medications. In the car, Simone stared straight ahead, her jaw locked tight. She wouldn't cry. She wouldn't fall apart. She had too much to do, too many responsibilities. Falling for Jay had been a luxury she couldn't afford, and now she was paying the price. He seemed shocked to see you, Monica offered carefully. He's a good actor. Clearly. Maybe he really was going to tell you. Don't. Simone's voice went hard. Don't defend him. He lied. 4 weeks. That's all that matters. But even as she said it, she remembered the way he'd held her mother's hand, the gentle way he'd helped Diane to the bathroom, the hours he'd sat keeping vigil so Simone could sleep. The way he'd looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Had all of it been fake? Her phone buzzed. A text from Jay. Please let me explain. Nothing between us was a lie. The feelings were real. Are real. She blocked his number and turned off her phone. At home, Mama took one look at her face and said, "What did he do?" He lied about who he is. About everything. Simone's voice finally cracked. He's rich, Mama. Really rich. And he let me think he was just a mechanic while I worried about payment plans and... She couldn't finish. The tears came then, hot and angry and heartbroken all at once. Diane held her daughter while she cried, stroking her hair like she had when Simone was small. Oh baby. I'm so sorry. You knew, Simone said suddenly, pulling back. That day he stayed with you. You asked if he was rich. I suspected. Wasn't sure. Diane's expression was sad. Did he say why he hid it? I didn't let him. I don't care why. He still lied. Sometimes people lie because they're afraid of being loved for the wrong reasons. He should have trusted me enough to tell the truth. Yes, Diane agreed. He should have. But fear makes us stupid, honey. Even good men. Simone shook her head. She didn't want understanding or forgiveness. She wanted to rewind time to before she'd met Jay Davidson, before she'd let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have love and duty both. That night, lying in bed, she let herself remember the kiss in the parking lot, the way he'd laughed at the farmer's market, the gentleness in his hands when he'd helped her mother. The way he'd said, "I'm falling for you too," like it was both a gift and a confession. If the feelings were real, why hadn't the truth been? Her phone, turned back on to check for messages from Mama's doctor, showed 17 missed calls from Jay and one text that had come through before she'd blocked him. I love you. And I'm sorry. Those are the only 2 truths that matter. Simone deleted it and cried herself to sleep. Was Simone right to walk away without hearing Jay's explanation, or should she have let him speak? What would you have done? Tell us below. Jay sat in his penthouse apartment surrounded by everything his money could buy and felt completely empty. The floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Asheville's skyline, the mountains beyond touched with early snow. His sound system played silence. His chef's kitchen stood unused. His king-sized bed felt like a prison. 3 weeks. 21 days since Simone had walked out of that cafe and out of his life. He'd tried everything. Flowers sent back. Letters returned unopened. Even showing up at her house once, only to have Diane's night nurse inform him, kindly but firmly, that Miss Patterson had instructed no visitors, especially not him. Kevin found him on a Thursday evening, staring at his untouched dinner and a bottle of bourbon he'd opened but couldn't bring himself to drink. "You look like hell," Kevin said, letting himself in with the spare key Jay had given him years ago. "Thanks. Real supportive." "I'm serious, man. When's the last time you showered? Or slept?" Kevin sat across from him, concern etched in his features. "This has to stop." "What has to stop? Me missing the woman I love? Sorry, I'll just turn that off. You need to either fight for her or let her go. This middle ground is killing you." Kevin gestured at the apartment. "You haven't been to the garage in 2 weeks. You've missed 3 investor meetings. Your property manager is threatening to quit because you won't return calls." "I don't care about any of that." "I know. That's what's scaring me." Kevin leaned forward. "Talk to me. What happened at the cafe?" Jay had avoided this conversation, but the words came pouring out now. The look on Simone's face when she'd connected the dots, the way she'd accused him of playing games with her life, the final devastating blow of, "I want to have never met you." "She wouldn't let me explain," Jay finished. "Wouldn't listen to why I'd kept quiet. Can you blame her?" Kevin's tone was gentle but honest. "Put yourself in her position. She's struggling financially, caring for her dying mother, and the guy she's falling for has been essentially playing poor while sitting on a fortune." "I wasn't playing poor. I was just being myself. The self you are at the garage, maybe. But that's not your whole self, Jay. You built an empire. You employ 200 people. You donate millions to charity. That's part of who you are too, and you hid it from her. Because the moment women know about the money, that's all they see." "Not all women. Just the wrong ones." Kevin stood, pacing. "Did you ever think that maybe Simone deserved the chance to prove she wasn't like those other women? That by hiding it, you made the decision for her?" The words hit like a sledgehammer. Jay dropped his head into his hands. "I was going to tell her." "When?" "After she knew me well enough that it wouldn't matter." "But it does matter, Jay. The money is part of your reality, part of any life you'd build with someone. She needed to know that." Kevin's voice softened. "And you needed to trust that she could handle it." "What if she couldn't? Then at least you'd know. Instead, you took away her choice and now you've lost her anyway." Kevin grabbed his coat. "I'm going to say something, and you're going to hate it." "Great. Can't wait." "You need to respect her decision. She asked you to stay away, so stay away. Stop the flowers, stop the letters. Give her space to process this. And if she never comes back?" Kevin's expression was sad. "Then you learn to live with the consequences of your choices. Like the rest of us." After Kevin left, Jay sat in the darkness and let himself feel everything he'd been pushing down. The grief of losing Simone. The shame of knowing Kevin was right. The anger at himself for being so stupid, so afraid. He thought about his father, about the last conversation they'd had before the heart attack. Thomas Davidson had been sitting in this very apartment, smaller than, before Jay had bought the whole building, looking uncomfortable among the expensive furniture. "Son, all this stuff," his father had said, gesturing around. "It's impressive. But don't let it become who you are. Things are just things. It's how you treat people that matters." Jay had built an empire but lost sight of that simple truth. He'd treated Simone like she was fragile, like she couldn't handle his reality. In trying to protect what they had, he'd destroyed it. His phone rang. Unknown number. His heart leaped stupidly before he answered. "Mr. Davidson?" An unfamiliar voice, female, professional. "This is Linda Reese, I'm the night nurse for Diane Patterson." Jay's blood went cold. Is Simone okay? Is her mother? Mrs. Patterson is stable, but there's been a complication. She's asking for you. Diane's asking for me? Yes, sir. I know Ms. Patterson left instructions, but Mrs. Patterson was very insistent. She said it's important. Jay was already grabbing his keys. I'm on my way. The house was dark except for Diane's bedroom when Jay arrived 20 minutes later. Linda met him at the door, a kind-faced woman in her 50s who looked exhausted. She's awake but weak. Please don't stay long. Diane was propped up in bed, oxygen cannula in her nose, looking frilier than Jay remembered. But her eyes were sharp when they focused on him. You look terrible, she said, her voice thin but amused. You too, ma'am. No offense. None taken. I'm dying. She gestured to the chair. Sit. We need to talk. Jay sat, his hands clasped between his knees. How's Simone? Miserable. Won't admit it, but I know my daughter. Diane studied him. You love her. Yes, ma'am. More than anything. Then why'd you lie? I didn't mean to lie. Jay struggled for words. Every woman I've dated since I made money, they saw the portfolio, not me. I wanted Simone to know me first. So you made her feel like a fool instead. The blunt assessment stung because it was true. I was wrong. I know that now. Wrong isn't enough. You need to understand why it hurts so much. Diane's breathing was labored, but she pushed on. My daughter spent 3 years with a man who made her feel less than. Not successful enough, not ambitious enough, not worth choosing over his career. When she finally chose herself and me, she thought she'd never be enough for anyone. Jay felt sick. I never thought. Then you showed up. Just Jay, the mechanic. Someone she could be enough for because you seemed to be living a simple life too. Diane's eyes glistened. And then she found out you were living a completely different life and hadn't trusted her enough to share it. You confirmed every fear Derek planted in her head. God. Jay put his head in his hands. I'm an idiot. Yes. But you're an idiot who loves my daughter, and she loves you, even if she won't say it. Diane coughed, a wet sound that scared him. I don't have much time left, Jay. Weeks, maybe a month if I'm lucky. Mrs. Patterson. Let me finish. When I'm gone, Simone's going to be alone. She'll throw herself into work, into taking care of everyone else, into anything that keeps her from feeling the grief. Diane reached out a trembling hand. I need to know someone will be there to catch her when she falls. Someone who loves her enough to be patient while she heals. Jay took her hand carefully. I'll be there. If she'll let me. Make her let you. Fight for her, Jay. Not with flowers or money. With truth. Diane squeezed his fingers weakly. Tell her everything. Your fears, your mistakes, why you hid. And then tell her what she means to you. Real words, not pretty ones. What if she still won't forgive me? Then you respect that and love her from a distance. But at least you'll have tried. Her eyes started to close. Now go, before Simone gets home from the pharmacy. She doesn't need more stress. Jay stood, then bent to kiss Diane's forehead gently. Thank you for giving me a chance. I won't waste it. You better not. I'll haunt you if you do. Outside, sitting in his truck, Jay felt something shift. Diane was right. He'd been wallowing, waiting for Simone to forgive him without actually doing the work of earning that forgiveness. He pulled out his phone and called Kevin. Clear my schedule for the next week, Jay said. Why? What's happening? I'm going to fight for her. The right way this time. About damn time, Kevin said. What do you need? Jay looked back at the small house, at the window where Diane lay dying, at the life Simone had built from love and sacrifice. Everything, he said. I need everything. Is it fair for Jay to fight for Simone now, when she asked for space? Or should he respect her wishes and stay away? Drop your thoughts. She'd fallen asleep in the chair beside Mama's bed, her hand wrapped around her mother's cooling fingers, and woke to a silence so profound it hurt. No labored breathing. No humming of the oxygen machine. Just stillness. Mama. Her voice cracked. Mama, no. Please, not yet. But Diane Patterson had slipped away sometime in the night, peacefully, without fanfare. Just like she'd done everything in life, quietly, gracefully, without asking for anything. The next 72 hours passed in a blur. Phone calls to family. The funeral home. Pastor Williams from the church Mama had attended for 40 years. Monica appeared like magic, taking over the logistics while Simone sat numbly at the kitchen table, unable to process that the woman who'd raised her, who'd sacrificed everything, who'd been her entire world for 3 years, was simply gone. The funeral was on Friday. The church overflowed with people, nurses Mama had worked with, neighbors she'd helped, patients who remembered her kindness. Simone moved through it like a ghost, accepting condolences she couldn't really hear, hugging people whose faces blurred together. She didn't see Jay in the back pew. Didn't notice him slip out before the burial, respecting the boundary she'd drawn even as it killed him. After the repast, after the last casserole was delivered and the final visitor left, Simone sat alone in her mother's empty bedroom and finally let herself shatter. The grief was physical, crushing her chest until she couldn't breathe. She curled up on Mama's bed, clutching the pillow that still faintly smelled like her mother's lavender lotion, and sobbed until there was nothing left. Monica found her there hours later, dehydrated and hollow-eyed. "Come on, honey," Monica said gently. "You need to eat something." "I can't." "You have to. Aunt Diane would kill me if I let you fall apart." "I am falling apart." Simone's voice was raw. "I don't know how to exist without her." Monica helped her to the kitchen, made tea Simone didn't drink, and sat with her in the silence. Finally, she said, "He was at the funeral." Simone's chest constricted. "Who?" "Don't play. Jay." "He sat in the back, left before the burial. Sent the flowers, the white lilies that were Aunt Diane's favorite." "How did he know?" Simone stopped. "She talked to him." "What?" "Before she died. She must have." Simone remembered coming home from the pharmacy that night 3 weeks ago, finding Mama unusually peaceful, smiling like she knew a secret. "She called him, didn't she?" Monica pulled out her phone, scrolling. "I don't know about calling him, but he's been busy. Look." The screen showed a news article dated 5 days ago. Davidson establishes Parkinson's Research Fund in honor of Diane Patterson. The donation was substantial, $2 million to UNC Medical Center, earmarked specifically for research and patient care. Simone's hands shook. "He did this for Mama?" "Keep reading. There was more. A free clinic being established in Diane's name in the neighborhood where she'd worked for 30 years. A scholarship fund for nursing students. An endowment for home health care services for families who couldn't afford help. He's trying to buy forgiveness," Simone said, but the words felt hollow. "Is he? Or is he honoring someone who mattered?" Monica closed her phone. "I'm not saying you have to forgive him. But maybe read this before you decide anything." She handed Simone an envelope. Heavy paper, Simone's name written in Jay's neat handwriting. "When did this come?" "He gave it to me at the funeral. Asked me to wait a few days, until you were ready." Monica stood. "I'm going to stay tonight, sleep on the couch. Don't argue." After Monica left, Simone stared at the envelope for an hour before opening it. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a smaller, sealed envelope marked, "From Diane." Her mother's handwriting. Simone's heart stopped. She opened the smaller envelope with shaking hands. "My darling girl. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're angry at the world. I know you, baby. I know you're blaming yourself for things you couldn't control, pushing away anyone who tries to help. Jay came to see me a few weeks ago. I called him because I needed to know if he was worth fighting for. And honey, he is. He's stubborn and scared and made mistakes, but his heart is true. He loves you the way you deserve to be loved. Completely, messily, forever. I asked him to honor my memory not with flowers at my grave, but by helping people like us. People struggling to care for loved ones, people who need support. He's doing that. Not for recognition, but because I asked, and because it matters to him now that he's seen what real struggle looks like. You're going to want to push him away. Don't. You're going to think you have to grieve alone. You don't. You're going to believe you're not allowed to be happy now that I'm gone. Baby, that's exactly when you need happiness most. I didn't raise you to be safe. I raised you to be brave. Be brave enough to forgive. Be brave enough to love someone imperfect. Be brave enough to let yourself be loved. You were the greatest gift of my life, Simone. Everything I did, I'd do again 1,000 times just to be your mama. Now go live. Really live. Make me proud. All my love, always, Mama. Simone read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Then she opened Jay's letter. Simone. I won't apologize again for hiding who I am. You've heard that enough. Instead, I want to tell you what I should have said from the beginning. I was 28 when my father died and left me a struggling auto shop and a small portfolio of properties. I turned it into an empire because I thought success would make the grief smaller. It didn't. It just made me lonelier. 6 years ago, I went back to the garage because under the hood of a car, I remembered who I was before the money. I could breathe there. I could be Thomas Davidson's son instead of Jason Davidson, the developer. Then you walked into my garage with your dying car and your careful pride, and for the first time in years, someone looked at me and saw a person. Not an opportunity. Not a bank account. Just me. I got selfish. I wanted to keep that feeling. So I hid the rest, telling myself it was protection when really it was fear. Fear that you'd see the money and everything else would disappear. Your mother understood that. She called me out on it, told me I was being a coward. She was right. By trying to protect what we had, I destroyed it. The programs I've started in her name, they're not attempts to buy forgiveness. They're me trying to honor a woman who taught me that love is action, not words. That showing up matters more than showing off. I love you, Simone. I love your strength, your loyalty, your terrible bargaining at farmers markets. I love how you put everyone else first and still find ways to be kind. I love that you made me want to be better, do better, mean something beyond a bank balance. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know the truth. All of it, finally. I'm here if you need me. I'm gone if you don't. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. Forever yours, Jay. Simone sat in the empty house surrounded by sympathy cards and funeral flowers and the ghost of her mother's presence. She thought about Derek, who'd left when things got hard. About Jay, who'd shown up and stayed even when she'd told him to go. She thought about her mother's words, be brave enough to forgive. But forgiveness felt impossible when her entire world had just collapsed. How could she think about love when she couldn't even figure out how to survive the next hour? Monica appeared in the doorway. You okay? No. Simone's voice broke. I'm so far from okay, Mon. And I don't know if I can do this. Any of it. Then don't do it alone. Monica sat beside her. Let people help. Let him help if you want. Or don't. But stop trying to carry everything yourself. Simone looked at the letters again. At her mother's encouragement and Jay's honesty. At the choice laid out before her, keep hiding in grief and anger, or risk being brave. She didn't know what to choose. She didn't know if she had the strength to choose anything. All she knew was that the silence in the house was deafening, and the loneliness was going to swallow her whole. After losing someone you love, is it better to grieve alone or let someone in? Should Simone reach out to Jay or focus on healing first? Share your thoughts. Jay stood in front of Simone's house for 10 minutes before finding the courage to knock. It had been 2 weeks since the funeral, 2 weeks of respecting her space while dying inside, 2 weeks of Kevin telling him to be patient and his heart screaming to do something. The final push came from an unlikely source. Linda, Diane's night nurse, who'd called him 3 days ago. "She's not eating," Linda had said bluntly. "Barely sleeping. Monica's worried sick, and I don't blame her. That girl's drowning, Mr. Davidson. She doesn't want to see me." "Maybe not. But you're going to regret it if you don't try." Linda's voice softened. "Mrs. Patterson told me before she passed that you were stubborn enough to fight for her daughter. Don't make her a liar." So here he stood, heart hammering, holding something he hoped might make a difference. Monica answered the door, her expression wary. "Jay, I know she doesn't want to see me, but I need 5 minutes. Please." Monica studied him, then sighed. "She's in the backyard. And Jay, she's fragile right now. Be gentle." "I will." He found Simone sitting on the back porch steps, staring at nothing. She'd lost weight, her face gaunt, her eyes hollow. She wore sweatpants and one of what must have been her mother's cardigans, drowning in fabric that smelled like someone else. His heart broke all over again. "Simone." She turned, and a flash of something, anger, grief, longing, crossed her face before settling into careful blankness. "You shouldn't be here. I know. But I needed to show you something." He sat beside her, keeping a careful distance. "And I needed to tell you the truth. All of it this time. Jay, please. Just listen. Then I'll go if you want, and I won't come back unless you ask." She nodded once, pulling the cardigan tighter. "When I was 28 and my dad died, I inherited a garage and 6 rental properties. I was supposed to keep the garage running, maybe expand a little. That's what he wanted." Jay looked at his hands. "But I was so angry. At him for dying, at myself for all the conversations we never had, at the world for being unfair. So I threw myself into work. I turned those 6 properties into 60. Then 100. Built an empire because if I was working, I wasn't feeling." He glanced at her. "People started treating me differently. Women who wouldn't have looked at me twice suddenly wanted to know me. Friends needed loans. Everyone wanted something. So 6 years ago, I went back to the garage. Hired managers for everything else and spent my days doing the work Dad taught me. Work that made sense." His voice cracked. "Work where I could just be his son again." Simone's expression had softened slightly, but she didn't speak. "Then you showed up, and you looked at me like I was just a guy who could fix your car. Not a bank account or an opportunity. Just me." Jay pulled the envelope from his pocket. "I should have told you right away. I was wrong to hide it. But I need you to understand why." "I read your letter," Simone said quietly. "And Mama's. Then you know I'm not here to ask for forgiveness I haven't earned." He handed her the envelope. "I'm here to show you what I'm asking for a chance to build." Inside were architectural drawings. Simone unfolded them, confusion crossing her face. "What is this?" "A community center. In your mother's neighborhood." Jay pointed to different sections. "Free healthcare clinic here. Counseling services here. Job training programs. After-school care for kids whose parents work double shifts." He met her eyes. "And here, offices for social workers. Including one with your name on it, if you want it." Simone's hands trembled. "Jay, this is expensive." "Yeah. But it's also necessary. Your mom spent 30 years taking care of that neighborhood. This would let her work continue." He pulled out another paper. "I've also set up a foundation. The Diane Patterson Foundation for Caregivers. It provides financial assistance, respite care, support groups, everything you needed and couldn't find when you were taking care of her." "Why are you doing this?" Simone's voice broke. "Because your mother asked me to honor her memory by helping people. Because you showed me what real strength looks like. Because I spent 6 years hiding from my own money instead of doing something meaningful with it. He took her hand carefully. And because I love you, and I want to build a life that's worthy of that love. I don't need grand gestures, Jay. I know. But I needed to make them anyway. He squeezed her fingers. You think I'm some millionaire who can't understand your life. You're right. I can't fully understand what you've been through. But I want to. I want to learn. I want to be the person you can lean on when things get hard. Things are always hard. Then I want to be there for all of it. The hard days and the impossible ones. The moments when you can't get out of bed and the moments when you're ready to take on the world. He shifted to face her fully. I'm not asking you to forgive me right now. I'm asking for a chance to earn it. To prove that I see you, all of you, and I'm not going anywhere. Simone looked at the drawings, at the careful planning that had gone into honoring her mother's legacy. Tears streamed down her face. She really talked to you before she died? Yeah. Told me I was an idiot, but that she liked me anyway. Jay smiled sadly. Said I needed to fight for you the right way. With truth instead of flowers. She always did know everything. She knew you'd try to do this alone. She made me promise I'd be here when you fell apart. He touched her face gently. So I'm here, Simone. And I'm not leaving unless you tell me to. I'm a mess, Jay. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I walk into rooms and forget why I'm there because half my brain is still listening for Mama to call me. Her voice shattered. I don't know how to be just Simone instead of someone's daughter or someone's caregiver. I don't know who I am anymore. Then let me help you figure it out. He pulled her into his arms, and she collapsed against him, sobbing. You don't have to be strong right now. You don't have to have answers. Just be here, and let me be here with you. I missed you, she whispered against his chest. I was so angry, but I missed you so much. I missed you too. Every single day. He held her tighter. I'm so sorry, Simone. For the lies, for the hiding, for making you doubt yourself. You are enough. You've always been enough. They sat there as the sun set, Simone crying out weeks of grief while Jay held her. Monica watched from the kitchen window, tears in her own eyes, and quietly closed the curtain to give them privacy. When Simone finally pulled back, exhausted and red-eyed, she looked at Jay like she was seeing him for the first time. I don't know if I can do this, she admitted. Trust you again. Open myself up to being hurt. I know. And I'll wait as long as it takes. He brushed tears from her cheeks. But while you're deciding, let me be your friend. Let me bring you dinner and sit with you in the silence. Let me help you sort through your mom's things when you're ready. No pressure. No expectations. Just me, showing up. Just you, Simone repeated. Who exactly is just you, Jay? The mechanic or the millionaire? Both. Neither. I'm just a guy who rebuilds engines because it makes sense and donates to Parkinson's research because you taught me what matters. He stood, offering his hand. Come on. Monica told me you haven't eaten today. Let me make you dinner. You can't cook. I've been practicing. Fair warning, it's not good, but it's edible. Simone took his hand and let him pull her up. This doesn't mean I've forgiven you. I know. And I might send you away tomorrow. I know that too. And we need to talk about everything. Really talk. No more secrets. Yes. All the talking you want. He smiled. But first, questionable pasta and honest company. Deal. Simone looked at him, really looked, and saw not the man who'd lied or the millionaire who'd hidden his wealth, but Jay. Flawed and scared and trying so hard to make things right. Deal, she whispered. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. And sometimes, Simone thought as they walked into the house together, beginnings were enough. When someone hurts you but genuinely tries to make amends, Should you give them another chance or protect your heart? What would you do in Simone's position? Let us know. The pasta was, as promised, terrible. Overcooked noodles drowning in sauce that tasted like someone had read about Italian food but never actually eaten it. Simone took one bite and started laughing, really laughing, for the first time in weeks. It's that bad? Jay asked, though he was grinning. It's worse than bad. It's a crime against pasta. She pushed the plate away, still giggling. How did you make sauce taste like nothing and everything wrong simultaneously? Talent. Pure talent. He dumped both plates in the sink. Pizza. I promise I only have to dial a phone for that. Pizza sounds perfect. While they waited for delivery, they sat at her kitchen table, the same table where she'd studied her mother's medication schedules, where she'd cried over medical bills, where Mama had insisted Simone tell her about the mechanic who made her smile. The ghosts were everywhere. But somehow, with Jay sitting across from her, they felt less haunting and more like memories she could eventually cherish instead of just survive. Tell me about the foundation, Simone said. The real details. Jay pulled out his phone, showing her plans that went far beyond what he'd sketched earlier. It's already funded. $5 million to start, with recurring donations built in. We're partnering with hospitals and social services to identify families who need help, respite care, financial assistance, home modifications, whatever they need. $5 million. Simone still couldn't wrap her head around the numbers. It's a start. Your mom took care of people for 30 years on a nurse's salary. Imagine what we can do with actual resources. He scrolled to another section. And the community center breaks ground next month. I've hired the architect, secured the permits. I want you involved in every decision if you're willing. Jay, this is incredible, but I can't. She stopped. I don't have a job. I can't afford to volunteer full-time. You'd be on salary. Director of Social Services. 6 figures, full benefits, complete autonomy over your programs. He met her eyes. And before you argue, it's not charity. You have a degree, experience, and the lived knowledge of what families need. You'd be earning every penny. Simone's throat tightened. You're offering me my dream job at a place that doesn't exist yet, funded by money that still feels surreal, to honor my mother who just died. It's too much. Is it? Or is it exactly what Diane would want? Jay's voice was gentle. She told me you'd fight accepting help. Made me promise not to let you. She really did a number on both of us before she left, didn't she? She knew what she was doing. Jay smiled sadly. Take time to think about it. No pressure. The position will be there when you're ready, next month or next year. The pizza arrived, and they ate in comfortable silence. Monica emerged from the bedroom where she'd been giving them space, assessed the situation with one look, and announced she was going home. You good? She asked Simone quietly. Getting there. Call me if you need me. And Jay. Monica fixed him with a stern look. Hurt her again and I'll make your life very difficult. I know people. Understood, ma'am. After Monica left, Jay started cleaning up, moving around Simone's kitchen like he belonged there. It should have felt intrusive, but instead it felt like relief, someone else taking care of things for once. You don't have to clean, Simone protested. I want to. Besides, you're exhausted. When's the last time you slept through the night? I don't remember. She rubbed her eyes. Every time I close my eyes, I see her. Or I wake up thinking I need to check her medications, and then I remember. Jay dried his hands and sat beside her. Grief is weird. It hits at random moments. You'll be fine, then suddenly you're crying in the grocery store because you saw her favorite cereal. That's specific. It happened to me with motor oil. Dad had a favorite brand. I ugly cried in AutoZone. He took her hand. It gets easier, but it takes time. And you need to let people help you through it. I'm not good at that. I noticed. But you're going to learn, because I'm going to keep showing up until you do. He stood. Come on. You're taking a nap while I tackle that disaster of a backyard. The yard's fine. Simone. There are weeds taller than you and a bush that might be sentient. Let me do this. She was too tired to argue. She lay down on the couch, thinking she'd never sleep with someone else in the house, and woke 3 hours later to the sound of a lawnmower. Through the window, she saw Jay in jeans and a t-shirt, pushing her ancient mower across grass he'd already half-tamed. He'd rolled up his sleeves, and there was dirt on his face, and he looked nothing like a millionaire and everything like someone who kept his promises. Simone watched him work and felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness yet, but the beginning of trust. The understanding that maybe, just maybe, this man was who he claimed to be, flawed and real and staying. She got up and went outside. You know I can hire someone to do that. Jay shut off the mower, grinning. You could. But then I'd just find something else to fix. I'm annoying that way. The gutters are clogged. See. Perfect. I'll do those next. Jay. She stepped closer. Why are you really here? And don't say it's just because you love me. I need the real answer. He was quiet for a moment, then said, because when my dad died, I had money and resources and still felt completely alone. I know what it's like to grieve surrounded by emptiness. He touched her face. I don't want that for you. And selfishly, I want to be the person you don't have to face it alone with. That's honest. I'm trying this new thing where I tell the truth. It's terrifying. He smiled slightly. How am I doing? Better. She surprised them both by leaning up and kissing him softly. Thank you. For the yard and the terrible pasta and for not giving up on me. Never. He kissed her back, tender and careful. I meant what I said, Simone. I'm here for all of it, the good days and the terrible ones. They spent the rest of the afternoon working on the house together. Jay cleaned gutters while Simone finally tackled the boxes of her mother's clothes she'd been avoiding. It hurt, holding fabrics that smelled like Diane, finding notes in pockets and grocery lists in her mother's shaky handwriting. But Jay was there when she cried over Mama's favorite Sunday dress. There when she found the envelope marked, for Simone's wedding day, and had to sit down because the grief was too heavy. There when she discovered her mother had been saving money. Small amounts, $20 here, $50 there, in an envelope marked, my baby's someday dreams. She never stopped believing I'd get my life back, Simone whispered, counting almost $3,000 in small bills. Because she knew you would. Jay held her while she cried. And you will. Not the same life, a different one. But you'll build something beautiful. I know you will. As the sun set, they sat on the porch steps where he'd found her that morning. Simone leaned against his shoulder, feeling wrung out but somehow lighter. I'm not ready to say we're okay, she said quietly. I'm still hurt. Still angry sometimes. Still scared you'll turn out to be someone different than who you're showing me. I know. But I want to try. To see if we can rebuild this into something real. She looked up at him. Something honest. We can. We will. He kissed her forehead. No more secrets, Simone. You want to know about my businesses? I'll show you everything. You want to see my tax returns? They're yours. You want to understand my whole life? I'm an open book. I want to meet your friends. See where you live. Understand the whole world you were hiding. She paused. And I want you to be patient while I figure out how to fit into it without losing myself. You could never lose yourself. You're too strong for that. He stood, offering his hand. Come on. Let's start right now. I'll take you to the penthouse, show you the ridiculous apartment I never use. You can judge all my expensive furniture and laugh at how empty it feels. Now. Why not? No more waiting. No more hiding. He grinned. Besides, you should see exactly what kind of disaster you're potentially signing up for. Simone took his hand and let him pull her up. Okay. Show me your world, Jay Davidson. All of it. All of it, he promised. Starting now. As they drove downtown, Simone felt nervous and hopeful and terrified all at once. But she also felt something she hadn't felt since before her mother got sick, curious about the future. Open to possibility. Ready, maybe, to start building a life instead of just surviving one. And when Jay pulled into the parking garage of the most expensive building in downtown Asheville, then led her to a penthouse that could fit her entire house 3 times over, she didn't run. She looked around at the expensive emptiness, at the man standing nervous and vulnerable in the middle of luxury that clearly meant nothing to him, and she smiled. You're right, she said. It does feel empty. Yeah, it always has. He stepped closer. But maybe, if you're willing, we could fill it with something real. Maybe, Simone agreed. Let's find out. After a major betrayal, can a relationship ever truly recover, or will there always be cracks? Do you believe in second chances? Share your experience. 6 months later, spring. Simone stood in the middle of the Diane Patterson Community Center, watching controlled chaos unfold around her. Contractors were putting finishing touches on the clinic wing, volunteers were organizing donated supplies, and her staff, her actual staff, were setting up offices that would soon serve hundreds of families. Her office had her name on the door. Director of Social Services. Some mornings she still couldn't believe it was real. You're doing that thing again, Monica said, appearing with coffee. Where you look around like someone's going to tell you it's all a mistake. It feels too good to be real sometimes. Simone accepted the coffee gratefully. A year ago I was drowning in medical bills and grief. Now I'm running a multi-million-dollar community center. Now you're honoring Aunt Diane by helping people who need it. There's a difference. Monica bumped her shoulder. She'd be so proud of you, cousin. I hope so. Simone touched the framed photo on her desk, Mama in her nurse's uniform, smiling at the camera with the kind of joy that came from doing meaningful work. I still talk to her sometimes. Tell her about my day. What did you tell her about today? Simone grinned. That I'm terrified and excited and pretty sure I'm going to throw up. Normal pre-opening jitters. The center's ready. You're ready. Monica's eyes sparkled with mischief. And speaking of ready, what did you tell her about tonight? That I have no idea what Jay's planning and it's making me insane. For the past week, Jay had been mysterious about their evening plans. Just told her to be ready at 6, wear something nice, and trust him. Which she did now, trust him, but that didn't make the suspense less maddening. The past 6 months had been a slow, careful rebuilding. They'd started with honesty, Jay showing her every aspect of his life, from board meetings to property portfolios to the garage where he still spent every Saturday. Simone had met his business partners, seen his tax returns, understood exactly who Jason Davidson was beyond the mechanic in work boots. And she'd fallen in love with all of it. The man who donated millions to charity but still changed oil for elderly customers who couldn't afford shop rates. Who sat through contentious investor meetings then came home and made terrible dinner while she laughed. Who'd held her through panic attacks and grief storms and never once made her feel like she was too much. They'd taken it slow. Dates that didn't end in sleepovers. Conversations that lasted until dawn. Learning each other's wounds and fears and dreams. Building something with a foundation of truth instead of omission. She still lived in her small house, couldn't let it go yet, needed the connection to Mama, but Jay's penthouse had slowly filled with signs of her presence. A toothbrush in the bathroom. Her favorite tea in the cabinet. Photos of them together scattered among his expensive furniture. Making it a home instead of a showcase. Whatever he's planning, he's nervous about it, Monica continued. Kevin let it slip that Jay's been distracted all week. Kevin needs to learn to keep secrets. Kevin's terrible at secrets. It's endearing. Monica checked her watch. Okay, I'm heading out. The volunteers can handle the rest. You should go home and get ready for your mysterious date. It's only 3 o'clock. Simone. The man is planning something big. You need time to properly prepare. Monica hugged her. And whatever happens tonight, remember that you deserve every bit of happiness coming your way. At 5:30, Simone stood in front of her closet wearing only a towel, second-guessing every outfit option. Too casual. Too formal. Too much like she was trying too hard. Her phone buzzed. Jay. Wear the blue dress. The one from our second date. And meet me at the garage instead of the penthouse. The garage? That was unexpected. She pulled out the navy wrap dress, smiling at the memory of their farmer's market date that felt like a lifetime ago. The woman who'd worn this dress had been so guarded, so afraid to trust. Now she could barely remember what that fear felt like. She arrived at Davidson's Auto Repair at exactly 6 o'clock to find the parking lot empty except for Jay's truck and a gorgeous restored 1967 Mustang she'd never seen before, gleaming cherry red in the evening light. Jay emerged from the garage in dark slacks and a button-down shirt, looking unfairly handsome and completely nervous. "Hi," he said, and his voice actually shook. "Hi yourself. Whose car?" She gestured at the Mustang. "Ours. Well, yours. I restored it." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Remember you mentioned your grandfather taught you about oil changes? He had a '67 Mustang. I tracked down the same model, spent 4 months rebuilding it." Simone's hand flew to her mouth. "Jay, you rebuilt an entire car. With help from the guys at the shop. But yeah." He handed her the keys. "Your grandfather believed in teaching you to value things, to take care of them. I wanted to honor that." She ran her hand along the pristine paint, emotion clogging her throat. "This is the most thoughtful gift anyone's ever given me." "It's not the gift. It's transportation for the gift." He opened the passenger door. "Will you take a ride with me?" They drove through Asheville as spring painted the mountains in every shade of green. Jay was quieter than usual, his hands tight on the steering wheel, and Simone's curiosity was reaching critical levels. "Are you going to tell me where we're going?" "We're almost there." He pulled up to a property Simone didn't recognize, a beautiful craftsman house on 3 acres just outside the city, with mountain views and a wraparound porch and gardens that were just beginning to bloom. "What is this place?" she asked as Jay came around to open her door. "A possibility." He took her hand, leading her up the porch steps. "I bought it 3 months ago. Haven't done anything with it yet because I wanted you to see it first." He unlocked the door, and Simone stepped into a space that took her breath away. Hardwood floors, huge windows, a fireplace made of river stone. The kitchen was spacious enough for serious cooking, with windows overlooking the gardens. Upstairs, she found 4 bedrooms, one that would make a perfect home office. "Jay, this house is incredible, but why are you showing me?" She stopped as understanding dawned. "Oh." He was standing in the doorway of the master bedroom, hands in his pockets, looking more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. "I know we've been taking things slow," he said. "And I know you're not ready to let go of your house yet, which is fine. We can keep it, rent it, turn it into office space for the foundation, whatever you want." He stepped closer. "But I wanted you to see what our future could look like. If you want it." "Our future," Simone repeated softly. "Yeah. Us building a life together. You running the community center, me splitting time between the garage and trying to be worthy of you. Maybe eventually a dog, or kids if you want them, or just us and our work and Sunday mornings on that porch." He took her hands, and she realized his were shaking. "I love you, Simone. I love your strength and your compassion and the way you bargain with farmers like you're negotiating world peace. I love how you talk to your mom like she's still here because in all the ways that matter, she is. I love that you make me want to be better, do better, mean something beyond money." He dropped to one knee, and Simone's breath caught. "I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes, probably lots of them. But I promise to always tell you the truth, even when it's hard. To show up for the difficult days and the beautiful ones. To honor what you've been through and support whatever comes next. He pulled out a ring box, opening it to reveal a simple, stunning diamond. Simone Patterson, will you marry me? She was crying before she could answer, happy tears that blurred her vision as she looked at this man who'd gone from stranger to friend to the person she couldn't imagine her life without. Yes, she whispered. Yes, absolutely yes. Jay stood and kissed her, sliding the ring onto her finger with hands that still trembled. They held each other in the empty bedroom that wouldn't be empty for long, and Simone felt her mother's presence so strongly it was like Diane was standing right there, smiling at the life her daughter was choosing. She knew, Simone said against Jay's chest. Before she died. She knew we'd end up here. Your mom was terrifyingly perceptive. Jay pulled back to look at her. I visited her grave last week. Told her I was going to propose. Asked for her blessing. What did she say? The wind chimes on the tree next to her headstone went crazy, even though there was no breeze. I'm taking that as approval. He grinned. Also possibly a warning to treat you right or face supernatural consequences. Simone laughed through her tears. That sounds like Mama. They walked through the house again, this time as an engaged couple planning a future. Simone imagined the empty rooms filled with life, furniture and laughter and lazy Sunday mornings, exactly like Jay had described. She pictured hosting dinners for their friends, Monica and Kevin arguing about everything, the community center staff gathering for celebrations. A life built on honesty and love and second chances. On the porch as the sun set, Jay pulled her close. So what do you think? Could you see us here? I can see us anywhere, as long as we're together. She kissed him softly. But yes. This place is perfect. Good. Because I may have already started planning renovations with your input in mind. He looked sheepish. I had Monica steal your Pinterest board. You've been conspiring with my cousin? For months. How do you think I knew about the Mustang? He spun her in a circle on the porch. I had a whole team helping me not screw this up. You didn't screw it up. It's perfect. Simone rested her head on his shoulder. All of it. They stood there as the mountains turned purple with twilight, two people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way and built something real from broken timing belts and honest conversations. Hey Simone. Jay said quietly. Yeah. Thank you for taking a chance on a mechanic in a garage. Thank you for being worth the chance. She looked up at him. And for the record, I don't care if you're a mechanic or a millionaire. I just care that you're mine. Always, he promised. Forever and always. Epilogue. 1 year later, they married in the gardens of the Diane Patterson Community Center, surrounded by the families they served and the friends who'd helped them find their way. Monica served as maid of honor, Kevin as best man, both making speeches that had everyone laughing and crying. Simone wore her grandmother's pearls and carried lilies, her mother's favorite. And as she walked down the aisle, she could swear she felt Mama's hand on her shoulder, could almost hear her whisper, "That's my girl. So brave, so beautiful." The community center thrived, serving over 500 families in its first year. Simone's social work practice grew into something that changed lives, exactly like she'd always dreamed. Jay split his time between the garage and their foundation work, finally understanding that wealth's true value wasn't in accumulating it, but in what you built with it. They kept Simone's old house, turning it into transitional housing for caregivers who needed respite. Diane's bedroom became a peaceful retreat space, filled with her photos and the love she'd given so freely. The Craftsman house filled with life, a golden retriever named Thomas, after Jay's father, and eventually a daughter they named Diane, who inherited her grandmother's fierce compassion and her mother's strength. On Sunday mornings, they sat on the porch drinking coffee while Thomas chased butterflies and little Diane played in the gardens. Sometimes Simone would look at Jay, still covered in grease from the garage, still making terrible pasta, still showing up for every hard moment and beautiful day, and marvel at how a broken timing belt had led to this. To home. To love. To a life built on truth and second chances. What are you thinking? Jay asked, catching her staring. That I'm happy, Simone said simply. Really, truly happy. Good. He kissed her temple. That's all I ever wanted. And in the mountains of Asheville, in a house filled with love and laughter and the ghosts of those who'd loved them into being, they built a life that honored every sacrifice, every loss, every moment that had brought them here. Together. Always together. The end. What's your biggest takeaway from Simone and Jay's story? Do you believe in second chances and love that grows from honesty? Share what this story meant to you below. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you so much for watching till the end. It truly means a lot to me. If this video touched your heart or resonated with you in any way, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to Emotional Voyage. Your support helps us reach more souls on this journey. Until next time, take care of your heart.